Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Pavel Fischer and I am the moderator of this panel. The purpose of our debate and of our exchange is to speak about democracy under threat. The freshly printed book is here, published by Oxford Press, under the direction of Surendra Munshi, who will be our first to take the floor. Since many of the authors are here, not only on the stage, but also in the room, just do not hesitate to take the floor and to ask questions, take notes, and say your interrogations. But at the first part, we will maybe stay with the debate here at the stage. After Surendra, I will invite all my panelists to take the floor and maybe to react, to speak about the concept and also the impression they had while writing their papers. Without further delay, I would like to invite Surendra Munshi. Dear Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you indeed. It's really a privilege to be here and with the fellow panelists and with you. I would like to tell you a little bit about the book, first of all, with some introductory comments. The decision to work on this book was taken last year. And within 1 year of taking a decision, we have the book in hand. And in my eyes, a timely book and representing serious engagement with some important issues of our times. This was, as the editor of the book, I must say, possible, above all, because of the cooperation of contributors. 3 of them are here, sitting on the panel. Massive cooperation. They responded to my unreasonable demands all the time in a very reasonable manner. And of course, this was possible because of massive support I received from Oxford University Press. The press took an impossible task and turned this impossible task into a possibility. Shogoto Ghosh is here, and I think it is fitting that, Shogoto, please don't sit down. It's fitting that you cheer up. Not only you, but please convey to your entire team for the kind of cooperation that is unbelievable indeed. To produce a book within less than a year is not a joke. Now, this book is a product of happy cooperation between Forum 2000 and OUP, and I really am happy about this. This book includes the work of 20 contributors from different parts of the world: Britain, Chile, Costa Rica, Czech Republic, Egypt, India, Iran, Israel, Poland, Slovakia, Spain, Taiwan, Turkey, and USA. There are no contributors from Russia and China, but I can assure you these 2 countries have been fully covered, or much covered, in more than one article. Now, very quickly about the context of the book. A detached observer of world affairs is bound to be struck by the manner in which democracy is being undermined all over the world. It is being undermined not only by external forces opposed to it, but also by those functioning within democracies of different shades, which act contrary to its spirit while professing allegiance to it. This is not an easy time, you will agree, for anyone who believes in democracy. Now, quickly, the coverage of the book. The book, a product of these uneasy times, makes an attempt to contribute to the discussion of democracy in a systematic manner, with a close look at democracy in practice in a global perspective, highlighting challenges from within and outside, issues such as crisis in democratic leadership, the fragile state of democratic institutions, populism, caudillism, and dynasty rule are discussed, along with threats of authoritarianism in the democratic order. In addition, questions have been raised as to whether the West has failed and whether leaders like Gandhi and Havel can help us to leave the era of post-truth behind us in order to create a human order with reason, conscience, and responsibility. Now, some of the highlights very quickly, and the panelists themselves will comment on what they have contributed and their impressions, so I'm not going into those details, But I must say we have reasons to be worried about, as far as the book is concerned, the impact of protracted economic stagnation, inadequately addressed economic hardships that the financial crisis brought to large sections of the population, a backlash against globalization, increased immigration and reaction to it in different parts of the world, and the transformation of the information space caused by the rise of social media and the toxic post-truth politics. Also, we have reasons to be worried about diminishing trust in the efficiency of the traditional institutions of representative democracy, failure of leadership, such trends as populism, caudillism, and dynasty rule. We need to worry about authoritarianism. And I think one contribution that the book makes very strongly, among others, is to direct our attention to what this means, both within authoritarian regimes as well as their influence outside. Considerations of how authoritarian regimes in Beijing, Moscow, and Tehran today are applying influence across a wide range of countries, including established democracies. It is believed, for example, that Russia insinuated itself into the 2016 election in the United States in unprecedented ways. Adam Michnik, who's present here, worries about the invasion of Putin's spirit in this part of the world. There is the emergence of, in addition, China as an economic giant, which is overshadowed by the fact that China continues to be one of the most repressive countries in the world. The human rights situation has deteriorated, nor is it likely that China will moderate the ways it exercises power and be open to democracy. Internationally, China has acquired legitimacy mainly due to the economic crisis, contrasted with its own economic achievements. It poses a challenge to the democratic ideal all over the world, particularly in places where it has economic and political interests, such as Africa and Latin America. Taking advantage of its economic presence in these areas, it uses soft power to build a case for the superiority of the Chinese model. All these points have been very much discussed in detail in the book. And now I don't want to end with a statement of doom and gloom. I want to also suggest, though the book is about functioning democracies, and the book is about assessing concretely what's happening in these democratic societies, but there are enough indications of the task ahead in these papers, apart from analysis of situations and issues. Just to highlight some of these indicated stars, it may be noted that democracies all over the world, especially democratic leadership, need to contribute to a resurgence of developing ideas, collaborating, and creating a new vision for the millennium, bringing back concerns for justice and social solidarity, especially by listening to others. Democratic institutions need to be strengthened. We need to ensure that good mechanisms are in place in every country to bring forward good leaders, making use of advances in technology. Being more vigilant, we need to recognize the dangers of authoritarianism and populism and stay in line with our West values and stand united. For each country or region, the democratic renewal must begin at home, drawing strength from the youth and leaders like Havel and Gandhi. A genuine democracy will not thrive unless we address the issues of violence and create a peaceful world, a world free of lies. Can we develop the courage to leave all deceptions behind us to create an inclusive and peaceful world order with reason, conscience, and responsibility? This is an arduous historical journey which needs to be undertaken. I'm reminded of the song which I sang in my youth, I never promised you a rose garden. Now, there is no rose garden that is being promised, at least not in terms of making the effort. It's going to be a hard work. This book should put to rest any lingering fear that Fukuyama talked about, the end of history. On the contrary, there is much struggle ahead, including ideological struggle. History has certainly not ended, but perhaps an important chapter of this history has ended, opening a new chapter with confusion, claim, counterclaims on our imagination, and at the same time, open possibilities that challenge our will for action. Final comment, sir? We can draw strength from this city of Prague, where in a different time, and in a different struggle, Havel and his friends and colleagues showed that we need not resign in the face of obstacles, but come together and speak up and create a new history. Thank you. And you will please forgive me if is the book open? Yes. If I finally read to you two endorsements that we were very lucky to get. I'm doing some publicity, for the book. Two endorsements that we received, we were very happy. One was from Wolfgang Schüssel, Federal Chancellor of Austria 2000 to 2007. Democracy Under Threat is essential reading for anyone concerned about democracy in these troubled times. This is what he wrote. And Abraham de Swaan, Emeritus University Professor of Social Science at the University of Amsterdam, Democracy Under Threat appears at the most timely moment. The rise of populism in established democracies, the turn towards authoritarian government in recent democracies, and the failure of democratization in autocratic systems have brought to an end a quarter of century of almost universal expectations of a worldwide flourishing of democracy. This volume will help the readers to reflect on the pressing threats to democracy in their home countries and in the world at large. So why are you waiting? Go and buy the book. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Munshi. You were extremely to the point, and you finished within the time we have established. So thank you very much. We have now three authors, co-authors, and three panelists with us on the stage. I would like to invite them first Axel Kaiser, second Adam Michnik, and last but not least Iveta Radičová. Axel Kaiser, you participated on the book by a text focusing the issue of Latin America, from illiberalism to populism, the ideological causes of the Latin American failure. Could you just give us some light? How do you see globally, from the Latin American viewpoint, this democracy which is under threat? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, I focused on something that I believe it's key to understand social evolution, which is the force of ideas, basically, and ideologies. We usually discuss a lot about material factors like economic crisis and other sorts of social problems when we try to explain why democracies face the threat of populism and things like this, which of course are very important. But there is an additional aspect, which is ideology. Remember, John Stuart Mill famously wrote that no institution can survive if the public opinion is not behind that institution in the long run. And I believe that's true. And applying this theoretical framework, which was much more technically developed by Douglass North, who was a Nobel laureate, to what you see in Latin America going on, you can come to the conclusion that the prevalence of certain ideologies, ideas, beliefs that are not in favor of the free society and representative democracy in general are part of the reason why we struggle with creating inclusive institutions. We have famously put by Acemoglu and Robinson these extractive institutions, which in the end make it very difficult to have progress in a social sense, in a democratic sense, and also in economic terms. So that's the main theoretical framework I applied to Latin America. But you could make the same case to other countries. I mean, if you start having populist movements that rise but are successful by spreading certain kind of ideas and beliefs, which can also find some truth in them. It's not that there are only lies. Sometimes there are realities behind these things. And the case of fascism in Europe was a very notorious example of this. And then you can, any society that is prosperous and democratic can go back to tyranny. I don't believe any country in the world has guaranteed success in economic terms and in democratic terms or in any other terms. So it's what you said, Surendra, it's the struggle, the ideological struggle. I think it's key in all this. And you don't have to have read Gramsci to understand this, or to have read Hayek, who also was very important in this regard. You have to see what's going on now in the world. And I would just want to, I don't know how much time I have left, I think 3 minutes or so. But just one final thought. First, we also have to ask ourselves, what are the elites doing wrong? Because, you know, populism, which is something that in Latin America, I think we know very well, has also many times some reality behind. And it's because elites just opt to ignore problems that are there, or they don't process them in the way that would be, you know, supportive for democratic institutions. So there are large sectors of society that in the end see a way out in these authoritarian responses or other sort of leaderships, which are not democratic necessarily. And I'm also German. I have come from Chile, but I'm also German. I lived in Germany for many years. I saw when the AfD was rising, it was a single-issue party focused on the euro crisis, and economics professors started this party, and many things they said were not really crazy, like technical problems with the euro, and they were immediately labeled the Mark nationalist, which means you are a sort of monetary fascist. And when you react like this to concerns that are legitimate to some extent, then it's no wonder that some people feel offended, and then they get angry, and then they start supporting these sort of political parties. So we have to you know, admit that there are issues that our leadership in the West and also Latin America has not taken care of, and we should change that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Axel, for your points. I have a question to the audience. How many remaining authors who participated in this book are in the room for now? I see maybe 2, 3, 4. Perfect. 5. Great. Sasha, 6. Maybe Shlomo, you said that you are about to leave. Could you just react to this issue of elites? What is it the elites do wrong? Could you just develop maybe the Axel's point as one of the co-authors, or just develop one of the viewpoints that you contributed to with this book before you leave us for your future appointment?
Thank you very much, Pavel. I'm not sure I can really give you an adequate answer, because I have to admit I'm just an author. I didn't read all the other pieces. But I think one of the issues which I found in those pieces which I did read is that there is at the moment a combination of a feeling both among public intellectuals, scholars and politicians that something is wrong in our democratic structure, precisely because we see populist movements from the right and the left, more successful in some countries, less successful, but still strengthening in other countries. And there is a feeling, it seems to me, and this comes through to some of the contributions, I also tried to address it, that while democracy in the West are working very well, there is a feeling that it is, in a way, an elite, not game, but an elite surrounding. And that the people, the usual citizens for whom democracy should really work, do not participate. And therefore, the populist appeal, both from the right and the left, has to do with the feeling that people who feel alienated, not from the outcomes of the system, but of the lack of participation, feel that in some of the populist movements, they participate. There is a feeling that here we are the people. And to me, it seems that the major challenge is how parliamentary or presidential democracies, representative democracies, will meet the representation issue into a central issue. That people who are not politicians, not statesmen, are not politically active, but will still feel that those institutions do represent them and give them a voice. And the voice of the people is something which is lacking in many of the established democracies, despite the fact that there works are elections, multi-party systems, governments change, people are brought into office, kicked out of office. This is okay, but there is a deficit in participation, and this seems to me to be the major challenge.
Thank you very much, Professor Avineri, for your contribution. I will go back to you, authors in the audience, within several minutes. But before I do so, I would like to invite Adam Michnik. Adam Michnik, who is editor-in-chief, succeeded to contribute by his paper, "The Bitter Taste of Velvet Dictatorship." Adam, from your viewpoint of journalist, how do you assess this bitter taste of velvet dictatorship? The floor is yours.
Ja po polsku będę mówił.
I'll speak in Polish, if you don't mind.
Jak przystało na polskiego snoba, mówię po rosyjsku i po francusku.
As a typical Polish snob, I only speak French and Russian.
Ja myślę, że ten smak jest szczególnie gorzki dla tych, którzy walczyli o demokrację i którzy uważali, że demokracja jest tym najlepszym, co ludzkość wymyśliła.
I think the taste is extra bitter, especially for those who fought for democracy and who strongly believed that the democracy is the best thing in the world.
Cechą dzisiejszej refleksji jest to, że ona ma charakter ogólnikowy. A kto mówi o wszystkim, to właściwie nie mówi o niczym.
And our today pondering may be characterized as general in nature. And it's, when you talk in general terms, it's like you talk about everything and nothing at the same time.
Inny jest smak populizmu w Italii, a inny w Polsce, inny na Litwie, inny w Izraelu, inny w Algierii, a jeszcze inny we Francji.
And populism tastes differently. The bitterness of the taste is different in Italy, in Poland, in Lithuania, Israel, Algeria or France.
Ja mam wrażenie, że dzisiaj dwa potężne zagrożenia dla demokracji to jest z jednej strony fundamentalizm religijny, a z drugiej strony to jest rosyjski imperializm.
And I have the impression that today we are facing two major threats for democracy. On one hand, it's the religious fundamentalism, and on the other hand, Russian imperialism.
Rosyjski imperializm jest niebezpieczny na dwóch zasadach. Po pierwsze, dlatego, że jest imperializm w sensie ścisłym, zmienia granice w Europie, podżega wojnę w Donbasie.
And there are two aspects to this Russian imperialism, why it is, I see it as such a big threat. Number one, that it's imperialism in the strictest sense, namely that Russia is trying to change boundaries in Europe. They are trying to instigate war in Donbass.
A po drugie, dlatego, że kraje europejskie naśladują putinowski model państwa. I to, co w Polsce dzisiaj oglądamy, to jest putinizacja państwa polskiego.
And the second peril I see and threat is that some European countries or European countries tend to look up to Putin and to his model of running the country, the state. And what we now see in Poland is, I believe, Putinization of the state.
I wraca stary język lat 30. jakby w nowym kontekście.
And now we see the return of the old language, the language of 1930s, now used in a different context.
Więc powraca się do religii jako elementu doktryny państwa. I w Rosji, i w Polsce, powiedzmy.
We see the return of religion as a state doctrine, both in Russia and Poland.
Ale z drugiej strony to jest jednocześnie bunt bogatych przeciw biednym.
But on the other hand, we also see the rebellion of the rich against the poor.
Katalonia jest najdroższym, najbogatszym regionem w Hiszpanii.
The Catalan region is the richest region in Spain.
Ja mówię, my się nie będziemy dzielili z tymi żebrakami z Andaluzji.
And they say, we will not share our wealth with Andalusian poor.
Bo Polska jest krajem, który po pojęciu uchodźców ma swoją historię od 300 lat.
Poland, on the other hand, is a country that has a history of dealing with immigrants for the past 300 years.
I rząd tego 40-milionowego kraju powiedział, że nie można wpuścić 7 000 uchodźców. 7 000. Dlatego, że oni przyniosą zarazki, będą gwałciły kobiety polskie i zagrożą Polski tożsamości narodowej i religijnej.
And now we see the government of this 40 million citizens country who says that we will not let in 7,000, I stress only 7,000 immigrants in, because they will bring in bacteria, they will rape Polish women, they will destroy Polish religious and national identity.
No i wreszcie Stany Zjednoczone. Trump powiedział całemu światu, że mija ten okres, kiedy Ameryka będzie gwarantem pewnej stabilności i pewnych wartości demokratycznych na świecie. Trumpa te wartości nie interesują.
And finally, let me say a few words about the United States of America. We have Donald Trump there, who clearly stated to the entire world that the times where America was the warrant and guaranteed the stability and democratic values for the entire world, these times are gone.
Ciągle ten konflikt populizmu i autorytaryzmu z demokracją nie jest zakończony.
And we see that the conflict between populism, authoritarian government and democracy is still on.
Wybory francuskie pokazały, że można falę populistyczną zatrzymywać.
What we've seen in France during French election is that you can actually stop the wave, the influx of populism.
Ale trzeba pamiętać, że w takich krajach jak Polska i Węgry, i oczywiście Rosja, zahamowanie tej fali autorytarnego populizmu to nie jest za zadanie na jutro. To będzie trwało. Trzeba się przygotować na długi marsz. No.
But in countries such as Poland, Hungary and Russia, our struggle to stop populism and authoritarian government will take a long time. You have to get ready for a long run.
Adam, many thanks for your words of extra bitterness and of invitation to patience. The last panelist we have on the stage is Madam Iveta Radichova. What is the take you would like to stress, the highlight you would like to speak about? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, it's really a pleasure that I have chance to discuss with you a small chapter in this new book on democracy, because many other my colleagues are maybe better panelists here. So only my point of view, and I try to be very, very brief. I think we are facing 3 new conflicts. First, and I will really be brief, global markets in the conflict with the means of national politics. Second tension is a tension in between democracy and main values of democracy versus global market values which are based on privacy, privileges and monopoly. Totally opposite value systems. And last but not least, the gap in between macroeconomy and everyday life of our people and citizens, which is mainly resulted of changes in economy based on new technologies and fourth industrial revolution. All these have consequences, deep consequences. New social stratification all around us, new division of or criterions of equalities and inequalities, with the result of new majority in society. This majority is not further so-called middle class, the majority are losers or dissatisfied citizens. Doesn't matter if objectively or only because of expectation gap, which they have. Politics try to react, and politicians try to react. And the major reactions I see in 3 dimensions. First, they shift the politics from big ideas to the politics of projects. What we offer to the citizen except the visions and dreams? We are offering them projects, digitalization, energy project, etc. projects. No vision, no dream. Without dream, they cannot be believed, then there cannot be trust and satisfaction. Second shift is from collective entities like former standard political parties were because they represented somebody, at least some social groups, to the personalities. I was traveling today through Czech Republic. I have seen faces, faces and faces, persons with, I can say, the same slogans. I do not remember differences. I didn't touch the differences. Same offer. Why? Because the reaction of politics, last change, is that they try to fight with populists by the means of populists. They cannot be winners. It's impossible. So the major losers of today's political situations are standard political parties, together with their former voters, which are lost in this situation. There are possibilities what to do. Sure, to return to the real problems of the people. How they really live. What real problems they are facing. So they return to the trust that democracy is the way where they can find their place. Second, to totally change rhetoric. We are preoccupied by promises, better life, better future, because people see that these promises as empty words. And last but not least, to really open the means for so-called participative democracy, but not in the way like somewhere at the beginning, in totally new way. Not only through referendum, which has lost the real position in the societies, but with totally new means. We can see it mainly among the younger generation. So, think in the facts. We are facing global anti-globalization, we are facing populism, and we are facing international nationalism. And the answers cannot be through the means and rhetoric of all these opposite movements. So to offer idea, program, real issues with rhetoric based on the truth, so return to the trust to the societies, because they lost this trust to so-called democratic representation. Thank you very much.
Many thanks for this brief and very strong message of yours, Iveta Radičová, and many thanks for all the panelists that who succeeded to develop the issue. Maybe first question to Axel, to Surendra, to Adam, and to Iveta. Would you like to react to each other before we invite other authors, remaining authors who are with us in the room? Surendra, the floor is yours.
Well, I mean, my one reaction will be that in terms of leadership that Iveta is talking, and that is the theme she has developed in this book, in her article, we really need to ask ourselves, like she does, to what extent are there visions for future there? And, you know, if an academic says it, it has one meaning, but if someone who is both an academic as well as a politician, as well as a statesperson, it carries a different meaning altogether. I was reminded that last time in an opening statement, Kiska made a statement that I am not worried about terrorists. I am not worried about any other form of violence that is going on. I am worried about irresponsible behavior of politicians. That was what he said. And I think we carry an article from him, and I think that's a very strong message which we need to pay attention to. As far as the comments by Mr. Michnik are concerned, you know, I, in my introduction, concluded my introduction by going to his piece, because he says that in the midst of all the troubles that we have, it is the task of commentators, social commentators, to speak out, because if they don't, then the price of not speaking is very high. And I think this is a message, which is a message in a way from Eastern Europe. We know Mr. Michnik was a good friend of Mr. Havel. They did many things together. And I think in this sense, it's also a message from Havel, namely, we need to stand up and be counted no matter what the obstacles are.
Thank you very much. Axel, please.
Well, I also didn't have the chance to read the whole book, not even my article, so this is the first time I'm close to the book. Yes.
Did you write your article?
I did that, yes. You are witness to that, so. I cannot comment so much on the other articles, but it seems to me that, I mean, here we all agree that populism is rising and that's a threat to democracy and that's a very bad thing. We all agree on that. The interesting question to me is, why is populism rising right now? You gave some reasons for that, and I agree. But at some point we discussed about a subtitle for the book, Challenges to Responsible Leadership. Has the leadership in the West over the last decade been very responsible? I would ask you. Was it responsible to introduce the euro in the way it was thought about? To accept Greece, Italy, and other countries to go into the euro? Was that responsible? I have followed this debate in Germany very closely, and I don't think so. And the huge crisis is partly due to the lack of responsibility of our leadership, who, by the way, in Germany and France, they did not respect the Maastricht debt limit, for instance, and other things like this. Is it responsible to print money like there is no tomorrow? Was Angela Merkel responsible with her migration policy, which she now regrets? She said it. Was that responsible? Even a Marxist like Zizek wrote that was a completely undemocratic decision she made. Are we responsible when we pretend that people are not really facing serious changes in their lifestyles when they have massive migration? Can we assume that anyone who expressed some concern about that is a xenophobe, is a racist, immediately, right away, because that was the reaction of many journalists, intellectuals, and politicians over the last decade. We cannot deny that. That was in Germany, that was in the United States, everywhere. So people get frustrated. I mean, it's hard, it is, and I will finish with this, but I cannot believe that half of the British people who voted for Brexit are all racist and xenophobes. I cannot really believe that. Even a thinker like Niall Ferguson, who supported the Remain campaign, later said, I would have supported the other side. The same in America. I don't believe everyone who voted for Trump is desperately racist or anything like this. So I think we have to demand more and expect more from our leaders.
Axel, many thanks for this opening of the debate. I see Iveta who would like to react and to have a say. Please.
This will be the picture and very good advertisement. Read the book, because now you will see how we disagree totally. I absolutely disagree what I have heard. Absolutely. Step by step. First of all, Europe in 1910 was the Europe with colonies around the world, with strong power and strong position, with some of the countries with democracy and first democratic systems in the world. In 1950, Europe was under the control and power of United States and Soviet Union. In 1990, Europe was democratized, Maastricht Treaty was signed, and first step to unification of totally destroyed Europe after the two world wars has started. Very weak process, very short process. It's still baby in Europe. Therefore, the only way how not to repeat the same mistake, especially from Germany, was to keep us together somehow in peace. So opposite, not to close Europe for weaker parts of Europe like Greece or Italy or now Serbia and Balkanians, opposite, to open the door. We are the wealthiest continent in the world, and we are not able to help our neighbor state. Oh, come on, then forget it. Second point, undemocratic, democratic solution and decision. If you have crisis, you have to react very quickly, but react. Not to be silent, not to do nothing. We are facing collateral damage, that's true, of the synergy of deepest crisis last 150 years, but the deepest economic crisis last 150 years. And as you know, economic disorder, social disorder, have always consequence, and it's security disorder. That's why the fear and feeling of non-security now is so present. Millions of immigrants in last century, where we will come to help to rebuild Germany and other totally damaged states in Europe. Now we have enough, sorry, I have enough. So you who are under the political conflicts, wars, who are dying at home, sorry, it's not comfortable for us. We are not prepared now because we are preoccupied by immigrants from the last years and from the last century. What are we doing? We have no right. Those who have a label that we are democratic, we are wealthiest in the world, we have the best political system, we are open and democratically open to all the others, now we are looking like the people are dying in the sea? Are we human beings? So I really think that if we are really strong and we have a trust to the system we have built, then there is no risky at all. Why I have a fear from another religion? Because I have not real faith in my heart. It's the only explanation. If I am enough strong, I have trust inside me, there is no risk at all. One example, I was Minister of Labor, Social Affairs and Family in 2004 and 2005. During 1 year, there were 15,000 refugees in Slovakia. Who knew? Who remember? Government solved it. I didn't use citizens for political fight, because what politicians are now doing, they are using citizens, in this case, for political fights. And this is not fair. This is not real politics. This is undemocratic.
Axel, I think that you have to be brief because Adam would like to react as
It's 1 minute. It's 1 minute, not more.
But I am the boss.
2 minutes.
Adam.
No, but before, because there is a misunderstanding, I want to clarify just one thing before he speaks.
Okay. So, Axel, 1 minute.
I was not speaking against the European Union. I was speaking against the euro as a single currency, which now, no, it's not the same. Most economists, and even Nobel laureate economists, agree it was a disaster. And I believe that.
Most economists are saying opposite. We can now try to put on the table the arguments.
So I take the floor now, and by my authority, I ask Adam to develop.
Ja w moim kraju często spotykam teraz takie pojęcie symetryzmu.
In my home country, I often hear the new coined term symmetrism.
Oni tak mówią więcej jak Axel. Wszystkich trzeba rozumieć. I tych, co byli za Brexitem, i tych, co byli za Trumpem.
And people who use this term, they have the same arguments as Axel. They say you have to understand everybody. Those who voted for Brexit, those who voted for Trump.
Oni mają swoje racje, ale ci, co byli za Hitlerem, i ci, co byli za Stalinem, też mieli jakieś swoje racje. I trzeba było te racje rozumieć, ale nie można wzywać do tego typu demokracji, która jakby na tym samej płaszczyźnie stawia pozycję antydemokratyczną z pozycją demokratyczną.
You say that we have to understand them, that they had their rights and rationale for such decisions, but also those who were pro-Hitler and pro-Stalin also had some arguments and rationale behind their decisions. And I don't think we are allowed to call for a democracy that puts an equality sign between anti-democratic and democratic thoughts and concepts, ideas.
I za chwilę dojdzie do tego, że w Polsce mi każą rozumieć Putina, który zaanektował Osetię i Abchazję, teraz zaanektował Krym, za chwilę będzie anektował kawałek Mołdawii. I ja mam go rozumieć. Przede wszystkim ja mam się bronić przed nim. Najpierw obronić się. A potem, jak już zwyciężę, to rzeczywiście powinienem socjalistycznie zrozumieć, dlaczego tylu ludzi zgłupiało i głosowało na Kaczyńskiego, głosowało na Putina, głosowało na Trumpa i tak dalej. Oczywiście, jeżeli ktoś jest sfrustrowany, to może głosować bez sensu, ale to nie znaczy, że on głosował z sensem. No.
Adam, many thanks.
No, mam to przełożyć. And in a short time, it will turn out that I will be asked in Poland or made in Poland understand Putin. They will ask me to understand Putin. Putin who took over Ossetia, Abkhazia, Crimea, and soon he will also take over part of Moldova. I don't need to understand him. I need to defend myself against him. And only once I win, then I may try to think and try to understand why did millions of people vote for Putin, for Trump, for Kaczynski. But my first and foremost obligation is to defend myself against him. Sure, there are people who are frustrated and they make nonsensical and unreasonable choices and vote for people that they shouldn't vote for. But we cannot call something that doesn't have any sense a sensible solution.
Before I ask Surendra, please be prepared, you who are the author in the audience, to develop, because after Surendra we would like to give you the opportunity to speak out and join us with this very rich exchange. Surendra.
Thank you. Two brief comments. I have read all the articles written by the three panelists sitting here, and also by Sasha, by Ramin, by Neelam. I see these contributors. I have read all. I enjoyed reading them. And so I can say from the perspective of a person who has read all the articles that there are such, of course, if you're handling critical issues of the time, there are bound to appear differences of perspective. There are such differences very much alive in this book. But I can tell you there is one unifying thread running across all the articles, namely concern for democracy. There is a general concern for democracy, and the contributors, including myself, we wish to uphold and see it flourish and are not happy in these troubled times. So this is one point that I would like to make. And the second point, in terms of responsibility of politicians, I would very briefly mention that kindly keep in mind that we are living in a world today which has been officially, if you like, characterized by the term post-truth, when the criterion of truth does not matter anymore. Now, earlier, if I was caught telling a lie, whether I was a politician or an ordinary citizen, I would feel a need to defend myself. I would feel ashamed. I would say, man, I was not telling the lie. But today, that shame of telling a lie, basically the shame of being a liar, is not there anymore. And that is a situation which is a very dangerous situation. And that is a situation when, however old-fashioned it might appear, that's a time when we must closely look at Gandhi and Havel. Because for both of them, not only responsible behavior, but truthful behavior was very vital. And today we need to remind ourselves of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Surendra. So, Neela, Ramin and Sasha, who of you would like to take the floor? Neela, please, the micro.
Thank you very much. I actually want to ask a question which has nothing to do with my contribution in this book. And that has to do with all the experts we have, and in some of the other panels that I've attended, everybody is analyzing the people and who are these people and attributing whatever it is that seems important to them. But I do have a question to ask of the European people, and whether it is that which came out quite strongly in all the discussions regarding the immigration or the refugee issue that Chancellor Merkel of Germany dealt with in a particular way, whether that was democratic, whether it was consensual decision-making or not. Nobody wanted to examine the aspect of the participation of NATO in many of the wars from which people are fleeing. That is really a corruption at the heart of democracy here. And who wants to look at it? Who wants to talk about it? In fact, in the sessions I've attended, one of the solutions mentioned in the discussion of President Trump of the United States, etc., is that we must all spend more on defense, as if NATO were not a powerful enough organization. And then we have to look, what do the people here want? Do they support NATO? Is it NATO which sets the agenda for the European Union, as it certainly has in the last few years? Those issues, I would recommend that Professor Munshi edit another book.
Thank you for the invitation. Who from the panelists would like to react? Iveta, please.
From my point of view, as I see and understand it, the answer for present consequences of really collateral damage, of synergy of different crises together with refugee and migration is connected. It's not only one. If there are not social economic crises since 2008 in Europe, the reaction is really different. But my answer is, if we put more money to defense, we will support some few private firms in military sector. The only answer on the fear or less security among the citizens is only through better education, so more money to education system, more money to culture, and more money to education for democracy. Because we feel insecure if we do not have possibility to use equality of chances. It means freedom. And equality of chances meant education, qualification, and cultural values, if you wish, ethic. Not only in everyday life, but mainly in politics. This is the answer. So when to invest the money? Education, culture, and participation in democracy.
Thank you very much. A second author in the room is Sasha Vondra. Sasha, could you just take the floor and maybe develop, because you spoke in the book about West and its leadership, but maybe you have something to develop now in the middle of the debate. Please.
Hi. I did not expect to speak here, and I do not have an interest to extend my thinking beyond the West, because that's my thesis is about the West, whether the West is failing right now. And if yes, and that's my thesis, so what are the root causes of this? And it's a typical, because it goes like a red line through all our discussions here. You know, everybody is blaming, you know, the populist or whoever. I think we should blame rather ourselves. Simply, and that's the core of my thesis, that the Western thinkers, Western policymakers are simply performing an extraordinary weakness. That the problem is the deep relativization of our own values, which we have allowed to happen. Our policies, which tends to make happy every single minority and their various claims, and suddenly we are surprised if the majority is fuck up with us. So the way forward is to start to think about ourselves, and I would stay silent here, but I think that this debate which we just listened to is a typical. I believe that I was almost alone with my argument in the book, but I have to read now carefully Axel Kaiser and comes to his defense. Because, you know, he gently tried to put a brief analysis why there is a Brexit, why there is a rise of AfD, and he was immediately beaten by my friends, Iveta, that he's immoral, by Adam, that, you know, he used the Hitler stick. This kind of a communication, which is not fair at all, is exactly the road even to a deeper problem. That's my thesis in the book. Thank you very much.
I have to react. Nobody, neither Adam nor me, has attacked my colleague in this sense. No such a word. Sasha. Sasha, come on. What are you doing?
The moderator.
You are not in TV now, so we have to wait the words. The problem is that, sorry, only really one important sentence. We are trying to find a way how to go out. All of us, or majority, who are concerned about the future. But to think that we will solve the problem if we says that 10 years of development, for example, of Eurozone, we have to stop or what? My question is what? There is a chance to stop it now. You can imagine what does it mean to stop it now for the 19 countries. This I see because we are now facing economies growth, that's truth, etc.
Axel would like to react, and I am the moderator, so please, Axel, you have 1 minute.
I'll be brief. I think I have to. If I got in a room with my two panel colleagues and we would discuss about the ideal type of society and what institutions we want, what sort of education we want, economic policy we want, I think we would agree on everything, more or less. So the thing is not that you are on that side and that's where you were going with your comments and I am on the other side. No, I'm trying, like you said, to understand what are the causes for these things to happen. Why do we have a Brexit that was completely unexpected? Why do you have a Donald Trump? I don't think that all that people is just mean or anything, and I don't think, you know, that the Western leadership has been very responsible with many things. We cannot. I don't accept that. I mean, anyone who has followed the policies implemented in Europe in many regards will conclude that in many aspects were not very well designed or well thought. And I think this is a huge reality. So I was trying not to develop a normative speech, but a descriptive speech. Maybe I'm wrong, but that doesn't mean that on a value system level we are not on the same side. We are exactly on the same side. It's just I
am not so sure. At least you are expert and I am politician. What to do?
Well, no one is perfect, but but I think we could agree.
Thank you very much, Axel, for this Grimm's joke. It helped me to bridge to the third author we have in the audience. Ramin, please take the floor. What is your take?
Well, first of all, let me say that I'm very much honored and pleased to have participated in this edited book with different authors, old friends like Adam Michnik, who I've known for a long time, actually, and new friends like Iveta and others with whom I participate in the Forum 2000 and the Program Council. I think that this book is also a book of differences and diversities. And so we have authors which don't agree with each other and might disagree, but it's about the diversity of our world, where people are very different, and we come, and Forum 2000 actually represents that too. I mean, look at the Program Council, where we are all working in it. I was born in Iran, I actually grew up in France, I have Canadian citizenship, and now I live in India and I teach in India. So you make your choice. Typically Forum 2000, you know, by essence, which means global. I belong to Europe, I belong to Asia, I belong to the Middle East, but also to North America. And a typical 21st century person, actually. But I think that the best way to understand, and actually it refers to my article, which was a comparative article between Gandhi and Havel. And why? Because I'm a Gandhian scholar, and Havel because I knew Havel since 1990, which I was a student in Paris, and I came for the first time in Prague with some French artists and intellectuals for the European Culture Club. And I was actually an activist in Paris for Poland, for Czechoslovakia, for Romania, for other places. Now, Surendra Munshi, for those of you who will buy the book and read it closely and pertinently and acutely, in the last sentence of his introduction, he says, though intellectuals and publicists, they might think helpless in the wave of unreason, they might stand up, they have to stand up and speak up and fight. And this is actually, I think, the most important aspect of this book, because all of us, with our differences in different worlds that we live, we have to continue the art of questioning. This is the most important thing, and as I said it in the morning, democracy mainly is about the art of questioning. What Donald Trump and Putin don't do, or even Erdogan, I think, and most of the people who take us towards authoritarianism, is that they close up the art of questioning. They don't want this art of questioning to go on. So I would say long live the art of questioning, which is the most important, and it's actually the message which comes out of Forum 2000 is the message which comes out of this book. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ramin. We have now time to give you the floor, maybe for 3 questions, so just be prepared, because if the democracy is about the art of questioning, so just try to ask, to challenge us, and who would like to start? Please, raise your hands.
No question, we can go.
Please, in the second row. We will take all 3 together, okay? Please.
Hello, dzień dobry. My name is Anna and I'm from Poland. I'm a freelance journalist and a program manager at Czech NGO People in Need. I have a question to Redaktor Michnik. Redaktor Michnik said that it will be a long process before actually we can stop the wave of populism in Poland and Hungary. But my question is, how bad does it need to take actually for us to see peace lose support? Because we've seen tens of thousands of people on the streets, if not hundreds of thousands of people on the street. We're slowly losing freedom in many crucial aspects in Poland, yet the ruling party maintains around 40% of support. So what is your response to that? And if I can also ask, which is related to that actually, we also see that peace is increasingly adopting the language, the narrative of authoritarian regimes when it comes to the public TV and government-controlled media. They are basically copy-pasting the messages of Pierwszy Kanal, Azerbaijan's ASTV. How should Gazeta Wyborcza respond to this kind of language? What's your strategy? How to deal with this new phenomenon in Poland? Thank you.
So we have 2 questions at once, and maybe third one. Is there someone who would like to?
It was one question.
And one question. Okay, perfect. So who would like to ask next? There is a... Yes, please. In the right. Please.
I would just like to ask quickly. I assume that most people were at the opening event this morning. But I would just like to ask the panelists what they think of one quote that I heard, which I thought was interesting. It was a speaker, Monk, he was talking about Trump. And he was saying that now we see a lot of politicians that say that I represent the true people, you know, that everyone else is wrong. And I would like to know the opinion of the panelists on if this is a dangerous view and how we can get the majority to agree with perhaps things that we see as progress. And just keeping that in mind.
Thank you very much. And third question? No, thank you. Adam. Adam, could you develop the reply?
Pytanie, które mi zadała moja koleżanka z Polski, jest metafizyczne.
The question from my Polish colleague is metaphysical in nature.
Ja myślę, że... Ja może odpowiem anegdotą.
Let me answer with an anecdote.
W 1984 roku w naszym kraju była amnestia i nas, kryminalistów, puszczono na wolność.
In 1984 in Poland we had amnesty and all us criminals were let free.
Andrzej Wajda zaprosił na drinka Jacka Kuronia i mnie.
Andrzej Wajda asked me for dinner together with Jacek Kuroń.
I akurat do niego przyszedł świeżo wyrzucony rektor Akademii Medycznej w Krakowie.
And there was also present the freshly kicked out president of Medical Academy from Krakow.
Jego wyrzucili. Ja się go pytam, panie profesorze, to co teraz będzie? On mówi, ale panowie, pan Jacek, pan Adam, ja myślałem, że wy wiecie, że wy powiecie. Ja mówię, panie profesorze, bo my wiemy, my tylko nie znamy szczegółów.
And I was really flabbergasted and I said, oh, Mr. Dean, Mr. Professor, what now? What will happen now? And he turns to me and he says, well, gentlemen, we have Jacek here, we have Adam here. I thought you knew what will happen in future, what will happen now. And we said, yeah, we know roughly, but we don't really know the details yet.
Więc jak ja mówię o tym, że to będzie trwało, to nie znaczy, że ja cokolwiek wiem na ten temat, bo ja nic nie wiem. No. Natomiast ja mam przekonanie, że trzeba mieć determinację i upór. I to miał Gandhi, to miał Havel i to mieli moi koledzy z Komitetu Obrony Robotników. No.
And when I said that we will need a lot of time for the process, it doesn't mean that I know anything. I don't really know anything. I don't know. But I know it will take time. But the only thing I'm sure of is that we have to be very determined. We have to stay strong, just like Havel did, just like Gandhi did, and my friends and colleagues from the committee of KOR.
I teraz ja nie straszę, o co mnie podejrzewa Sasza Wądra. Ja nie straszę nikogo Hitlerem. Ja tylko uważam, że poważny, odpowiedzialny człowiek, który się wypowiada o polityce w XXI wieku, nie wolno mu zapominać, że w XX wieku był Hitler i był Stalin. Jeżeli on od tego abstrahuje, to on sam się oślepia.
And I'm far from waving my Hitler flag here to scare anybody, just like Mr. Vondra said I was trying to do. But I think that whenever somebody is talking about politics in the 21st century and wants to stay serious, they have to remember that we had Stalin, we had Hitler, and if you ignore this fact, then you're blinding yourself.
Zwłaszcza, że Sasza mówi o Hitlerze z dzisiejszej perspektywy. Ale wystarczy przeczytać gazety prawicy w Czechosłowacji, w Czechach i w Słowacji. Co się mówiło o Hitlerze, tutaj się pisało przed 1938 rokiem i po 1938 roku. Każdy z naszych krajów z tego regionu ma za sobą doświadczenie swojego własnego faszyzmu, własnego, polskiego, litewskiego, rosyjskiego, ukraińskiego i tak dalej. I teraz ta filozofia, żeby zawsze szukać faszyzmu u sąsiada z perspektywy europejskiej, to jest perspektywa zabójcza. Trzeba szukać u siebie.
And Mr. Vondra was talking about Hitler from today's perspective, but it's enough to have a look at right-wing newspapers before 1938 and after, what they were writing about Hitler, to have a better picture about it. And I have to let me remind all of us here that each country in the East and Central Europe has their own history of fascism, be it Polish fascism, Russian, Ukrainian, etc. And I don't agree with the philosophy of looking for fascists next door in the neighboring countries. We have to look into our hearts and see that we've all had some national fascism history.
Thank you very much. The second question was about true people who are supposed to be represented by true politicians, I mean true populist politicians. Surendra, would you like to take the floor?
Who asked this question? Yes, that is, yes, sorry, I lost the contact for a minute. That is indeed a tragedy in my eyes, that democratic systems need political parties and political leaders, and at the moment, the sense of responsibility shown by many politicians, I'm not saying all, is of not very high order. So it is not just lack of information, but misinformation that is spread. It is not appreciation of reality. One can have one kind of appreciation or the other. One can have deficit understanding, but it is intentionally telling lies. You know, there was, during the Trump campaign, there was a website which was set up whereby on a continuous basis, each and every statement of his was subjected to truth test, that of other politicians also. Trump continuously on the truth test was a disaster. But it didn't matter to him. It didn't matter to him, even though it was being publicly checked and announced that he was telling lies. It didn't matter to him. So that is a point whereby, the point that I was trying to make earlier, that we have to worry where telling lies don't seem to matter anymore. This is a very alarming situation. And it applies to politicians, but it also applies to us. You know, if I do not any longer feel ashamed of telling lies, then I need to ask myself, what kind of society am I creating and what kind of society I am living in? So I think here we need to look inward, ask ourselves, how are we allowing it among others as well as among ourselves? Thank you.
Axel, you would like also to develop, please?
Just a word. From an academic perspective, there are many very different definitions of populism, but almost all of them agree on the fact that populism is a reaction against the established elites. Okay? And the populists always say, we are the true people, we represent the people, we are the voice of the people. Okay? Now the interesting thing is, and that was my point I was trying to make, and actually a book that came out by Oxford University Press last year makes this point, populism can even serve as a corrective for democracy. Why? And this is not I'm saying, I'm quoting directly from Kasmat and Rovira Kaltwasser from Oxford University Press. Because the established elites forget to take care about many problems that some sectors of society can be suffering or can be experiencing. And when you have from the elites high moral tones coming, like we all have to be good people and everyone who thinks differently is racist or Nazi or anything, then what you do effectively is to alienate these people. And if you follow the reactions to the last German election, you could see even the social democrats saying we went too far with the migration policy, we should have explained to people, we should have taken them with us in this whole process and all this. Even the social democrats, even the Greens were saying that. So I'm not saying this is good, I'm just presenting an analysis, okay? So let's stop with the political correctness for some time. I think we have to make a change here. It's legitimate to have differences of opinion, but don't keep pretending, we cannot keep pretending that there are no real problems. That this is all an illusion and populism is all an illusion and people get infected like it was some kind of a virus. To some extent it is. But I don't think that's the 100%, I mean that's the reality in 100%. So I would invite to be open to debate things that are uncomfortable, that could test your limits, your tolerance even, but we have to address them if we want to prevent these populist movements from keeping rising.
Yep.
And I finish with this. Remember when Hillary Clinton said that all Trump voters were deplorables? I think that's when she lost the election.
Thank you very much for this invitation to open-minded approach. I think that we have last round of questions, maybe the very last question. Who would like to raise the hand and address? Yes, please. The last question of our panel.
Yeah, wanted to raise the issue of sort of institutional aspects of democracy, and the part I'm addressing is that we have, in the issue of Brexit, we had, I don't know, 65% of the British population voting, of which about half voted for, and about half voted against. So we have about 32% of the population actually made a certain decision, which is of huge substance. The same in the United States. 60% of the population voted. Trump actually got less than 50% of those. That means he has less than 30% of the vote, elected a president of whose qualities we all know. It seems that he understands that's all he needs is 30%. It seems that Orban in Hungary understands that all he needs is 30%. It seems that many of these people know that all they need is 30%, which is not a majority. Now, in a polite political system, you could take that because you would understand that a person who won with 30% understands that he has still to convince 70%. If you have a populist like that, he will take it as, all I need is 30% to run this country for a long time. So the question is, isn't there an issue of the voting system that needs some changing in order to prevent that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have maybe now last round for our panelists, and I saw Iveta who wanted to react first. Surendra, you will be the second. Iveta, the floor is yours. And maybe final message also, if you allow me.
I am not so sure I am able to produce message, but I will try. First of all, personal thank you for your help to Slovakia. I will never forget. Never forget. Thank you. Very good example how goodwill, perfect manager, help us to survive after the Mečiarism and recover in eastern Slovakia a very important firm and factory and prepare it for further existence until now. So once more, thank you. Briefly, I always repeat and repeat and repeat to my students, to my colleagues in the politics. I have repeated it to my coalition partners in government, that behave in the way that we were elected by the biggest minority. And it's totally different behavior when, because of the legitimacy of the power. And think all the time that majority really didn't give us the voice. So the only way is to understand them. Each day, to hear their needs, their interests, why they didn't give us the mandate through representative democracy. And I think that because of this, not majority principle, but the rule of majority through legislative majority in parliament, we have to have democratic institutions which were cover and give the feedback to all those who are in the power. Mainly opposition in the parliament, then all other concrete democratic institutions like police, prosecutor, justice, NGOs, civic society, private sector, and last but not least, media. So we have created these principles and these procedures, how to control the power. The dangerous is in the moment when the power has changed the laws and have under the control media, have under the control police, prosecutor, justice, and then we are not liberal democracy, but illiberal democracy. We are facing, sorry Adam, illiberal democracy in Poland. We are facing illiberal democracy in Hungary. We are very near illiberal democracy in Slovak Republic that because we have first fascist party in the parliament, and it was without any one migrant in the country. It has nothing together, nothing. Like it has nothing together with what kind of currency we are paying in Czech Republic, in Slovakia, in Hungary, and in Poland, as if Slovakia is the only, from these 4 countries, the member state of Eurozone. Last but not last sentence, really, and then brief message. The economic crisis and financial crisis was not the crisis of Eurozone countries, as all of us knows. It was the same crisis, doesn't matter if it was the country of Eurozone with euro or dollar or zloty or what kind of currency you wish. So the roots were totally different, but we have no time now to discuss them, but you know it may be better than me. So my message is the role of mainly politicians are not to show to the people what they can hate. This is the way of populist. But mainly to show what they can enjoy, sometimes maybe laugh. So positive message. And if politicians is not giving these positive messages, it's clear populist.
Thank you very much. Adam, would you like to add something? 2 minutes? 1 minute, 2 minutes?
Jedno zdanie tylko. No.
One sentence only.
Żeby zobrazować to, co mówiła Iweta. Brytyjski historyk Norman Davies określił demokrację w Polsce jako demokrację kanibali.
Just to give you a better picture of what Ms. Rajchova just said, a British historian, Norman Davies, called the Polish democracy the democracy of cannibalism.
Co to znaczy? Są demokratyczne wybory i ta partia, która wygrywa, zjada tych wszystkich, którzy przegrali. No.
What he meant was that whenever you have a democratic election, the winner always eats everybody else.
Więc mnie się wydaje, że obok koncepcji demokracji nieliberalnej warto też przyjrzeć się koncepcji demokracji kanibalnej. No.
So I think that whenever we analyze the illiberal democracy concept, we should also focus on the cannibalistic democracy as well.
Thank you for this highlight. Axel, please.
Oh, lastly, just wanted to thank Surendra for all your work, to my colleagues, my co-authors, and to all of you for being here, and Oxford University Press, of course, for this huge effort. And I want to propose to the 2000 forum that we have a panel on the euro and the financial crisis next year, because I'll be more than happy to debate with Iveta about how I think the euro made everything much worse than it would have been. We have different perspective. It would be very lively, and I thank you for the debate tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. And I have now Surendra to maybe you started. So just how you would like to finish?
Thank you indeed for this kindness. Two very brief comments to the gentleman who raised the question earlier. My response very quickly. I mean, this is an extremely important question, but within the time available, I would just very briefly say that one of the tasks of democratic reform or revival or renewal is institutional reform. We need to look into not just leadership. It's very easy to say this leader or that leader is not good. but it is much more difficult to examine our institutions and examine them closely to see whether they are delivering or not, and if they're not, what needs to be done. And that brings me to my last comment. My last comment is that democrats all over the world, doesn't matter whether in Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Europe, Asia, Africa, United States, democrats in my eyes, and all of us who have contributed to this book are Democrats, must be critical of democracy if they want democracy to survive. We have lived far too long with the comfort of the statement that other forms of government are bad, democracy may not be perfect, but democracy is the best of bad choices. That's not good enough. That's really not good enough. We need to closely examine democracy in theory, democracy in practice, and ask ourselves, where is it failing and what needs to be done to save it?
Thank you for this. Maybe the organizers asked us to sum up with 3 ideas. So I will just prolong Surendra's thinking. Let's remain critical about democracy by art of questioning, by showing that the cannibal democracy is not the option, and that we have to have leaders who help us to not to hate but to enjoy, even love the agenda they propose. And last but not least, do not forget that we have the obligation to speak out. If not, the price is simply too high. Thank you very much for this very interesting panel. Thank you.